Have you ever stood at a crossroads, knowing the choice you make will change everything? Genesis 13 shows us one of those moments, a fork in the road that defines the destiny of two men, Abraham and his nephew, Lot. Now, most people read this story and see a simple squabble over land. But if we dig a little deeper, it's actually a profound lesson on the difference between spiritual vision and worldly sight. It reveals how the choices we make today, based on what our eyes see, determine the harvest we reap tomorrow. Let's set the scene. Abraham has just returned from Egypt after a major failure of faith. Remember, he lied about his wife Sarah to save his own skin. But now, in Genesis 13, he's a man restored. He returns to the altar he built at Bethel, calling once again on the name of the Lord. He's back on track, but there's a problem. Abraham is wealthy, and so is Lot. They have so many flocks and herds that the land can no longer support them both living together. Conflict starts brewing between their herdsmen. This is the first big test of Abraham's restored faith. Will he pull rank as the elder and fight for his rights? Or will he trust that God's promise to provide is bigger than any piece of land? What Abraham does next is stunning. He goes to Lot and says, "Let there be no strife between us." He gives up his right to choose first and offers Lot the pick of the entire land. He essentially stops a family-destroying conflict before it even begins. This is the turning point. Verse 10 says that Lot lifted up his eyes and saw the beautiful, well-watered Jordan Valley. The Bible describes it as looking like the garden of the Lord and like the land of Egypt. Now that's a critical clue. To Lot, the valley looked like Eden, a paradise. But the comparison to Egypt reminds us of the very place of compromise Abraham just fled from. It was a beautiful trap. Lot chose based on what looked good on the surface. He saw lush grass, plenty of water, and immediate prosperity. But the Bible adds a chilling detail right after. The men of Sodom, who lived in that valley, were wicked, exceedingly great sinners. Lot didn't move right into the city, but the text says he pitched his tent toward Sodom. He oriented his entire life toward its gravitational pull, all for the sake of profit. He was walking by sight, not by faith. Let's look at Abraham. After Lot leaves, Abraham is left with the rocky, less appealing highlands. But notice what happens next. God speaks to Abraham only after Lot has departed. The Lord tells him, "Lift up your eyes." This echoes what Lot did, but with a huge difference. Lot lifted his own eyes in an act of self-interest. God commanded Abraham to lift his eyes in an act of grace and faith. God promises Abraham all the land he can see, and descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth. Abraham's lesser portion was actually the greater inheritance because it came with the presence and promise of God. And what does Abraham do? He moves to Hebron and builds another altar. Everywhere Abraham goes, he leaves a trail of worship. Everywhere Lot goes, he moves closer to a city marked for destruction. So let me ask you, how often do you make decisions based on the Jordan Valley in your life? The job, the relationship, the opportunity that looks perfect on the outside? But if that choice requires you to pitch your tent toward a spiritually toxic environment, that outward beauty will eventually turn to ashes. Lot ended up losing everything: his wealth, his home, and almost his family in the fire of Sodom. Abraham, who chose the less desirable land, became the father of nations. This story teaches us that biblical success isn't about getting the best piece of the pie. It's about being where God is. If you're facing a choice today, don't just look at the short-term benefits. Look at the spiritual atmosphere of your destination. Trust that God can provide more for you in the wilderness with Him than the world can in the most beautiful valley without Him. The stakes are higher than you think. Your Jordan Valley might be the very thing that leads you away from the altar. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes deeper into the Word. See you next time.